Hi, I'm Francesca Rudkin and welcome to another Rialto Channel podcast. Throughout June, we've been playing a series of indie films on Friday evenings. And this week, I'm delighted to say that we are screening Like Me. It's a film written and directed by Robert Mockler, and it's a film about loneliness in the 21st century. And it's been a sensational debut. And Robert joins me now. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, did I pronounce your surname correctly, Mockler?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. Tick. Now, tell me a little bit about this film. Did it premiere at the South by Southwest Festival?
Yeah, South by Southwest in competition in 2017 was our premiere. And
what was the reaction like?
It was overwhelming. It was awesome. It was great. It was the first time I'd ever really screened anything in front of an audience before, so that experience alone was kind of overwhelming in itself. And then, seeing people sort of react to it one way or the other was encouraging. And I sort of always was expecting this to be a polarizing movie, and I think it's definitely been that. So it's been really interesting.
Was it pretty nerve-wracking at that first time, taking this baby that you've worked on for so long and sort of putting it out there?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I'm just a nervous personality in general, kind of scatterbrained, and most of the time I'm inarticulate, which you'll probably tell pretty soon. But yeah, I was like, it was the most nerve-wracking thing I'd ever really been through. In front of yeah. I mean, it's just like I worked on this movie for about 5 years, and it was just sort of an endless game of sort of seeing whether or not it would ever be willed into existence. And then when it finally happens, you never know what to expect. So that's the only thing I could really say about it.
Because so much energy does go into the creation of a film. And I'm wondering, at any point, do you think to yourself about the audience, about the fact that people are going to watch it, or are you so just immersed in that process of trying to create this film that you don't really sort of actually realistically think about the fact that people are going to sit down and watch this?
I don't think I think if you think about what people might think, that could sort of become maddening and maybe distract from your sort of ultimate focus. I think at the end of the day, I just tried to make a movie that I would want to see, and that hopefully my friends would want to see, and that the people were who I partnered with and collaborated with would be happy with. Occasionally you think about these things, but you can only really speculate, and you never really know how people are going to react at the end of the day.
Hey, tell us in your own words a little bit about the movie. Give the listeners a bit of an idea about what the movie is about and where the idea came from.
Well, where the idea came from is, it's tough to say because it was so long ago. But I sort of always wanted to make a movie that explored loneliness. I was interested in these sort of lonely man movies like Taxi Driver, and The Conversation, and The Tenant. I was just interested in making something about a character that sort of explored this idea of that I think we all face one way or another throughout our lives, sort of that compulsion to let the world know that you exist, and how that can sometimes manifest in ways that can be destructive and troublesome. But yeah, I guess it's about a young woman who sets out on a crime spree that she documents on social media, and sort of throughout her exploits, she becomes caught in this confusing dance between performance art and a reckless protest against the modern world. And along the way, she confronts this strange outlier who she begins to connect with in a very bizarre way, but a way that's potentially meaningful.
And Edison Timlin plays your lead character, and she's just absolutely fabulous. Where did you find her? How did you spot her for this role?
I was put in contact with the casting director, and she was someone that he recommended I meet. So I met her for coffee, and we talked for a good hour or two, and we just really got along. And it was clear that, I think you could, in reading the script, I think you could take a sort of superficial read on the character, and through our conversations, it was clear that that's not what she did. So that was really important to me.
Did you work
closely?
closely?
Got along really well.
Did you work closely with her then on the script? Once you sort of had her involved and you had her in mind, did that influence the script at all? Was it a bit of a collaborative affair?
I never worked with her in a way that we were sort of exchanging ideas, but after I met her and we had some initial conversations, that informed some changes and sort of shaping and molding the character in different ways. It's always nice to know who's going to try to bring these things to life, and that it's very helpful.
And of course, the film also stars Larry Fessenden. Now, tell me a little bit about your relationship with him, because he also came on board as a producer, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, I met Jen Wexler, who works for Glass Eye Pix. That's Larry's company, and she sort of came on board as a producer first, and then she introduced me to Larry. And then we got along really well. And I had just revisited Habit, which is kind of this wonderful sort of like John Cassavetes vampire movie that was made for no money whatsoever in the early 90s. And he plays a character that had a lot of similarities to the character he plays in Like Me, in that he's sort of this loner who's dealing with addiction. And he really brought a sensitivity to that role. That I thought could potentially translate in a way, and that he could, kind of, play with sort of similar things that he did back in the early 90s that he did with Habit, and maybe kind of find some new territory that could interest him. And luckily he was into the part, and he went from producer to also actor in the movie.
Because there's a great chemistry between Edison and Larry. You actually kind of understand their relationship. You believe this sort of almost Stockholm syndrome which takes place. You can see that the two of them need each other.
Yeah. I met Addison about a year before Larry ended up taking on the role. So I had a suspicion that would work, but I didn't really know until a day before production when we did kind of a table read, and there was sort of a relief in that their chemistry was kind of perfect.
Yes, it is a relief, I imagine. Hey, now look, tell me about how you sort of devised the style and the tone of this film. I mean, it's really unique. I mean, watching the film, I just couldn't kind of wait to see what you did next. Tell me a little bit about how you sort of came up with the look and the feel of the film.
It was sort of, while I was writing, my producing partner and editing partner, Jesslyn Abbott, we lived together, and we were sort of our entire apartment, the walls just became one big sort of mood board for the film.
Right.
Where we're sort of pulling different references from other movies, or just other references from photographs or from paintings, and we're sort of experimenting with color palettes, and so it was just years of digging through references, and then just sort of finally honing in on specific looks for particular scenes. And there was a lot of watching other movies, of course, too. Vera Chitova's Daisies was a big influence in terms of our editing style. And I mean, it's just this, and then sort of obviously when you have other collaborators come on board, everything kind of changes once again, and then when reality kind of takes over and the things start going wrong, on the day, then inevitably you have to make choices then that sort of alter things. So it's kind of like this living organism that's kind of always evolving.
There are some absolutely fantastic stylistic devices in this film, and I mean, I'm only presuming that as it was an indie film, you didn't have a large budget, but the film looks like you had a decent budget. I love that sort of 360-degree flip around kind of bedroom that you do at the beginning.
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
You're correct in assuming that we didn't have much of a budget at all.
It certainly doesn't look like that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, that was just this. It was this strange, very like makeshift rig that my cinematographer James Stewart, I guess he had a group of friends who had some sort of like DIY equipment, and he knew of someone who had this thing, and we were talking about there's in the film there's sort of a lot of like everything's kind of cyclical, and there's a lot of visual representations of things sort of revolving. So any way that we could kind of like figure out how to integrate that in a way that made sense, we did, and we used this it was just like rickety machine that I'm glad we didn't kill anyone with, but it was everything was fine. It was perfectly safe. But yeah, I mean it was just a DIY sort of little rig that my DP had access to.
And what about the motel rooms? Were they art directed? Did you make those, or did you manage to find these motels, or?
We actually found them. We wanted to
Wow.
build them for the longest time. We had we wanted these really like sort of surreal spaces, and it just in being pragmatic with trying to get the film made, we had to lower the budget. So it became a question of like, can we find these surreal spaces that somehow match the spirit that we were originally intending? And luckily, Jessalyn, my editing partner, my producing partner, she found this hotel in Rockaway, which was sort of devastated by this big hurricane, Hurricane Sandy, a few years back, and these artists came in and they sort of like made all these different amazing looking hotel spaces to sort of drive in tourism and hopefully bring the city back to life, because it really was in rough shape. And she found that, and we visited the location, and it was just 10 rooms that we could look through that were just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So we found the rooms in there, and there was one room that had this hammock in it. And then, after discovering that room, it's like, well, we can kind of build, there's a particular scene where we kind of build this sort of around that in a way that opens up sort of really interesting possibilities. So like that was, and it's kind of bizarre. I've actually encountered, some reactions to the movie, and it was like, who would put a hammock in a hotel? It's like, well, we thought the same thing when we walked into one, but
until we found one. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Apparently they do. Yeah. So obviously in the production of this film, you got some breaks like finding that incredible motel. What was the biggest challenge? What was something that you sort of didn't see coming or you didn't expect that you had to kind of deal with?
Oh wow, that's a loaded question. There's a lot. I mean, I think it's just that things are always going wrong, especially on a low budget movie. You can either lose a location, or you lose a prop that was important, or it's sort of like weather becomes a factor. And I guess it's just always trying to be on your toes and trying to make your vision as malleable as you can make it, but still be true to the spirit of what you originally intended.
Mm. Now, Robert, can I ask, where have you come from? Did you go to film school? Are you a self-taught filmmaker? Have you done short films? What else? Where have you come from?
I went. I couldn't really afford film school, so there was a local community college not far from where I'm from. And they had this amazing equipment locker, and it was just the matter of being self-taught, just taking things out and learning through failing and trying to make little short films, and trying to make music videos and learning what lenses are, and for me it was always like I'd always wanted to really take the plunge and learn how to make movies, but there was always kind of a cost entry that I felt that was preventing that. And then in 2010, when sort of like DSLRs revolutionized movie making, sort of democratized sort of like visual expression, it all of a sudden sort of became accessible. You could learn, and play with sort of different lenses. I think there was like, there's this. I've always been interested in, like, for me, film is a visual medium. So like, it's very important that like that they sort of tell the story. And it's not that I don't like movies that sort of don't emphasize visuals, but for me, those are the movies I've always kind of gravitated towards. So when that sort of technological shift happened, it was like, wow, you can actually learn how to do this stuff, and it's not as secretive as maybe it may have seemed.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, clearly you're a natural. I just loved the sort of super saturated, colourful, vibrant style that you've put together. And you mentioned at the beginning of this interview that you can be inarticulate at times, but in fact, this film, it does feel very articulate. It feels like a very well prepared, very ambitious film. Clearly you knew what you wanted and how you were going to get it. It's fabulous. It's great to see something that's a little bit different, that's dealing with issues that we're dealing with today, but with the 21st century kind of social media aspect to it. I also quite loved this obsession with the food.
Yeah. Yes. General, like throughout the entire movie, or
yeah.
I mean, we have a strange relationship with food nowadays.
We do,
don't we?
yeah.
And I have my own strange relationship with food. Like, I've definitely used it to medicate my own sort of like loneliness one way or another. I feel like I've had a strange sort of like, I use it as a crutch. I use food as a drug. I've used food as a drug, sort of. And it's just, food is in a strange place right now.
No, it was just another really cool sort of theme running throughout the film. Hey, so now look, this baby is out, it's finished, it's been a while now and everything since the premiere. How do you feel about the whole process of making a film? Is it what you thought it would be? Are you just in love with it? Is this is you?
Yeah. I hope I can do it for the rest of my life, of course. I just hope I can figure something else out that I find is worth the time. And so that's what I'm focused on now. But yeah, I love it. I loved every moment of it.
Brilliant. Well, I'm pretty sure that you will find some. I'm pretty sure you will come up with another amazing idea, and I cannot wait to see it fulfilled on the screen. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for tolerating all my uhs and ums and my stumbling.
You're not at all. And that's what we actually really like about these conversations, that they are just really nice and casual and we just sort of talk. So that's been absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much. And thanks for letting us play your movie too.
Thank you for having me.